Barbara Hepworth was one of Britain's most important sculptors of her generation.
She was one of the early pioneers of direct carving and geometric abstraction.
Her development of abstract forms gave her a key role in the development of modernism.
What is particularly exciting about this exhibition is that it focuses on one aspect that we feel we know, but in fact, when one looks at a number of different examples of strung sculpture across Hepworth's career, you begin to realise the infinite variety, the different types of string that she used, the different types of knotting that she used, but also the incredible ingenuity that was involved in making them.
All these tools have their special uses, and the left hand senses the organic structure of the material as it feels its way about the form.
After 1939, string starts to appear in all her favourite materials. To begin with, in plaster, and then in wood, and then in bronze, but before that in the sheet metal. Only once in stone, which you have in the exhibition here in alabaster.
A way of expressing her emotions. To begin with, it was more intellectual, to do with defining space, and part of a conversation that she'd had with other artists who were again interested in the same idea of using string. But she gave it her own particular brand. She made it her own particular form of expression.
It's a really good moment to look at strings in Hepworth's work. We're starting to be more aware of the entanglements of different fields and passions and disciplines within her work, whether that is music and dance and theatre, or science and technology and her interest in space exploration. And I feel like actually strings can speak to all of these different times, because she used strings in her works that relate to music, and she used strings in her works that relate to telecommunications.
One feels a tension, because sometimes with the sheet metal works, they are part of the structure of a work. But I think it's the sort of almost psychological impact. It's the fragility that one feels.
She harnessed weightlessness as a material, and she used strings to define that weightlessness. She's one of the first artists to develop that idea of space and weightless space as a material itself.
She's articulating the absence in her sculptural forms. So she's really sort of drawing in space. And I think that that's one of the things that makes her work so incredibly beautiful, these forms that almost look like they're going to take flight. And it's a real movement on from the more solid geometric carving that she was making earlier in the 30s.
The extraordinary beauty that she can create, the incredible poetry by using something so prosaic, is quite incredible.
So strings are a good way to look at this broader view of Hepworth that goes beyond sculptural form and into this wider field of art.
Her ideas for sculptures she translated into wonderful drawings, very, very sensitive, that she did at night.
The surface takes my mood in colour and texture.
She imagined sculptures that she would like to make, but she couldn't, so she did them in 2 dimensions.
We'll have a compulsion about it.
Painting and drawing is an important aspect of Hepworth's work, which I think for a long time hasn't been looked at quite so seriously as the sculpture.
Not all of Barbara Hepworth's work is abstract. Often an artist feels the need to work in a realistic way, and realistic paintings and drawings are complementary to the carving and modelling of abstract work.
I think she enjoyed the sort of feeling of liberation that one gets from drawing, not being confined or contained by materials. I think you sort of feel the great ingenuity that she's exploring quite spontaneously in 2 dimensions that you simply can't do in 3 dimensions.
The artist is free to follow his imagination and to create precisely to his will.
She made this series of works which were carved and painted inside, and she said the coloured concavities were the caves and the strings were the tension that connected her between the hills and the wind and herself. She talked about strings as being this connection between herself and landscape.
Washed up by the sea is a symbol of continuity.
She was obviously intensely interested in nature and in the natural world, exploring caves and coves and inside hollowed objects. And this is a wonderful example of that exploration, and the strings pull you in and take you out.
I think Hepworth is finally beginning to be realised as one of the greatest sculptors of her generation, and I think in her lifetime she was rather eclipsed by some of her peers, so it's great that she's finally being regarded as the sort of wonderful artist that she was.